Okay, so here we are in the Pond Science Institute Acoustics and Imaging Lab, and we hope that this will be where we do most of our imaging and acoustic work. The history of this whole lab has a lot of Dale's work with acoustics in it, and so we're gonna build on that intuitive energy that he's built, and it's readily available, along with all the parts that I used to build this. He's really created space that you can just kind of MacGyver out, as we were talking. There's everything here. If you need it, the resources are here. So yeah, so basically I'll just run a quick little test. My early rig, I'll just show you, was very simple. I would just put the water in a speaker cone. I put a little bit of like some kind of, what is it, like a polyurethane or something like that, so it didn't leak. And it gave me really good images, but what I've created with this is I've taken a latex rubber, and then I took a lid off a spice container. But what it does is it allows you to put like the perfect bead of water right on top. And what I'm noticing is if you're able to create as much surface tension as you can before the surface will break, is when you get the best images. So it's like an acoustic air transference. So, which seems to be really a really nice way to transfer vibrations through air. And I guess Dale said this piece was key in building Atlan, so it's got Atlan's energy on it. And it fits right on top there and makes everything nice and snug. We'll just fill this thing up with water. I just finished this last night, just built, so I'm still trying to build the dexterity to do it, but yeah, this just came to me last night. Somebody had sent Dale a pretty good note regarding some of the cymatics we had done before, and they had a really good point. You know, he just said, you don't need to be using such a large area to vibrate. And I've always kind of known that in the back of my head, but every time I get done with a build, I spend a lot of time on the images and studying them, so until I get on to the next build, I really don't go back and do a lot of tweaks. So this was a chance for me to make everything smaller and study it a little bit further.
And the water that you're applying, what is the...
Okay, this is actually full spectrum water. This is water from the Water Brewery, which is a water store that I'm partners with back home. And this is water that's consumable for human consumption, but it is magnetized. I have noticed that magnetized water is really good to work with. Dale has this magnetic H2O, which I probably should be using. I've just been using this because it's next to the rig. But I think there's a higher level of coherence, possibly, I don't know, with this magnetic H2O. But yeah, charged water, obviously, that's organized, is going to obviously perform better. So, okay, so we'll just get this thing fired up. Let's hit the lights. So pretty much this is turnkey. Eventually we're going to have to get some imaging equipment because I borrowed the camera and this is like my personal laptop. But other than those, like small components, I mean, this is turnkey. It all stays here, and you could flip a switch, fill it up with water, and Dale could show anybody you want, really. So you can see on the monitor too, or you can even observe. Now, going back to that whole perspective thing, like if you say you're standing here looking from the side, you're only getting kind of like a very limited perspective on what you're seeing, the reflection. But when you get the right perspective on it and you look right down the pipe, It's when the organization starts to happen. So it's kind of just reminds me of when you're like in the market and you're having a bad day and nothing's resonating with you, everybody's rude to you, or when you're at the market and you're having a great day and everybody's smiling at you and you're having a great day. It's kind of an analogy for me. So this is like early stage waveform, and then I'll increase the amplitude. What I also thought was interesting is you see these concentric rings expanding out.
Yes.
I want to do a mapping on those, but I have a feeling that those are like in the same proportion of like some of Walter Russell's drawings. I mean, why not? Everything else has been lining up geometrically, so I imagine this would too. So, you know, when we do move on with our imaging work here at the Pond Science Institute, I think that's going to be a big part of it, is doing a lot of geometric analyzing and cross-referencing to, like, you know, people's work like Keeley and Walter Russell and similar people. But here you can get an idea, you know, what it looks like on the screen. And if you want, what I'm going to do here is you guys can come right down here and look between the camera, actually, and you can kind of see what it looks like live.
Oh, beautiful. Beautiful.
And there's your perspective lighting.
How much amperage are you using to create that?
I'm running about 60 amps. This is 20 hertz. The lower frequencies respond better because I think they're just easier to contain. And what you do is if you start doing higher frequencies, these patterns group and become self-similar. And I don't know if you remember, but when I showed you the Indian chant, if you looked, these little hexagons were really tiny but spread out all over the image. So, and those were higher frequency setup, and it was also a different setup. So if I was to raise up the frequency and kick up the amps a little bit, it would start breaking up, becoming self-similar, same patterns. But so this gives us the best, I think.
Do you know how many
imaging.
frames they work off of before they repeat again?
No, I don't. That's an interesting question. I'm not sure how many frames they work off of. I know I'm capturing this at 60 frames a second. And I did do a video where I was able to capture the 60 frames a second and slow it down, which I don't have hooked up here. But what I'm doing is I'm simulating a high-speed camera. This is a consumer camera, so if you buy a high-speed camera, then we could actually slow it down to the rate so we can see like where these patterns, we could see the pulse rates, we could see where the nodes are at, we could see where the points of interest are in that image. And I know Dale and I were just about getting ready to move into Schlerin photography. This has kind of just been like getting the ground prepped, but eventually we want to do this with like light waves, you know, all kinds of different three-dimensional imaging, so we can actually see what this is doing, you know, on a ferric level. I think is a way to. I mean, what if we could actually, you know, set up a chamber of gas that we could see, you know, and we could see what the vortex patterns are doing that way. Then we could know a lot about how that is affecting the scientific work that Dale's doing with his builds. So yeah, so that's pretty much it, and the next stop is Schlerin photography. Schlerin